Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of season 1 of the In the Green Room podcast. If you're joining for the first time, by the way, I'm Wayne Ingram. I'm a professional actor, and on this podcast, I gather some professional actors too to discuss all things about the realities of being an actor, the expectations, the good, the bad, a whole mix of stuff. This episode is with actress Rachel Lin. And it's actually the second time we recorded this interview, because the first time we had some technical difficulties and the interview just disappeared on me, which in the 5 years, maybe even more, of podcasting has never happened to me before. But I actually think that this episode is probably better. This interview is probably better than the first. Thank you also for the outpouring of support for the previous episode 2 with Michael Peluso. It's one of my favorite interviews that I've ever actually recorded with anyone. So very candid. So thank you again for the support. If you haven't listened to that one yet, I do recommend that you do, either before or after this episode. It doesn't really matter which order you listen to them in. So I'm going to stop rabbiting on. Without further ado, here's my interview with actress Rachel Lin. The first question I generally ask, which I think I asked you last time, is the industry and the career of being an actor anything like what you expected it to be just before you graduated from training?
I think yes and no.
Right.
I think, like all people, I had visions of it being a step-by-step thing.
Yeah.
And that once I got one thing, everything would kind of fall into place, and everything feels like a kind of milestone. And once you reach that point, other stuff will start happening. It's
Yeah.
kind of the general perception that I have, and to a certain extent that's true, but in many ways it isn't.
Yeah.
Case in point, when I did my first kind of theatre job, I kind of just thought, oh, okay, well, other stuff will start happening, right? And then kind of as I got to the end of that job, I thought, oh, actually, that's not really the case. It's super up to me to kind of to make sure that the next thing happens, and I very much took that on board, and used my time to kind of, I guess, just talk to people, find out what else was happening, and just generally network. And so it did end up leading to other things, so I went from kind of the Lyric and Hammersmith, and I ended up doing a job for Old Vic New Voices, and
Oh,
so
you did?
yeah, and it was kind of like, it was written by the same writer as the Lyric job,
Right.
which was cool. But it wasn't, it wasn't kind of a thing where they got me into it. It was just, that was a chance thing. I auditioned for it and happened to get in.
Yeah.
And then I saw the writer, and that was quite nice. So it sort of felt like, oh, okay, there's this kind of little community here. Um, I was kind of on the cusp of getting in, type
Yeah.
thing, and so yeah, there was that kind of thing of it feeling like a one job sort of led to another, but really it is what you make of it, and I do think that there is a certain amount of tenacity to get to the next rung
Yeah.
that you've got to have. You can't wait for it to land on your lap. You've got to find it. And when I said to myself a couple of years ago, more than that now, I was like, oh, I really want to focus on screen. And it took years for that to kind of come into fruition.
Yeah.
But I had to keep telling myself that I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And there were times that I kind of doubted that, where I was like, oh my God, this might take forever, and I might never get this. But you have to shut that out. You have to kind of quiet that demon, because it's
Yeah,
not,
you do.
It's not really, it will never get you anywhere thinking
No.
like that. So you kind of just have to take it and run
And
with
also
it.
because everyone's kind of route is different, which I know is such a cliche, and everybody kind of saying, everyone's path is different, don't compare. But I think if putting arbitrary kind of, it's like that question that you always get from friends and family who mean well and say, well, how many years are you going to give it before you kind of throw in the towel and say, yeah, it's not working for me. And I think just putting an arbitrary kind of end date to your career, or even any aspect of your career, to say, oh, well, if I've not managed to land a TV role in 5 years, then TV is obviously not for me. I think is I don't want to say short-sighted, because I think that's got too many negative connotations, but a bit naive maybe, as to how this all works. And I think that's the thing that so many people battle with, particularly when they kind of start approaching the 30 mark, which I've recently gone to. I turned 31 a month today, in fact. And yeah, and I think I know so many people that have approached that 30 and suddenly gone, oh well, I've not had a single TV credit or anything like that, and so they then start wondering whether or not they should give it up at all. And I think it's the same kind of what you were saying there in terms of breaking into screen. It's having that expectation and managing your expectations as to how long this stuff really takes. And I think that's my frustration, I think, in terms of what drama schools tend to prepare students for these days, because the industry is very different to how it was 20 years ago as well. Like, actually getting that first TV credit can take you years. Like, I've not had a TV credit yet, and I've been at this thing for a decade. And it's just not happened for me.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge.
But that doesn't mean it won't.
Exactly.
I believe that it's on the way, and I think that really the challenge as an actor is it's all to do with you.
Absolutely.
And
it's
how hard you and how long you hang on for. And I think that if you start waning, if it starts not being fun to you and you want to just have a different life, then by all means, like, you should let it go. And it's not a failure to say goodbye to it, because it's just you being truthful to yourself.
Absolutely,
if something's not making you happy, you should definitely give it up. But at the same time, you kind of want to sort of shake the shoulders of an actor and just be like, everyone has their own time, and time is kind of arbitrary, doesn't it? Because it's like, what happens for your mate won't happen for you in the same way. It doesn't mean that it's not for you, it's just not your time yet. And I think the thing to remember with acting as well, and something which is kind of becoming more and more true, is that the older you get, the more people drop out of the industry, the closer it gets to you. It's like a triangle, kind of like an upside down triangle. And you're just kind of navigating your way up to the point. And as you reach every decade, it's like there's less and less people in your bracket, and you become closer to being the one, and it's a matter of time until it's you.
Absolutely. I was reading a book, actually, which I think I have on my shelf here, by Jane Drake Brody, called The Actor's Business Plan, which I found. She was a casting director at one point. I wish I'd bookmarked this now because it's completely relevant for this. And she was saying how when she was a casting director, it was kind of pre-digital, and everything was done by filing cabinets. And she had, I think it was something like, I'm completely paraphrasing this, but the concept remains the same, so it might be a bit inaccurate, but she had 4 filing cabinets full of actors and actresses aged between 18 and 29. And then she had 2 aged 30 to 35. And then she had 1 filing cabinet for ages 35 to 40, 1 filing cabinet for 40 to 50, and then a drawer, just 1 drawer for every age group after that.
Yeah, I think I've heard that before, actually, and it's a very interesting point. And I think it's something that people don't think about, because they're probably too busy focusing on what's happening to them to really kind of look around and see how the industry is. And I think that it's if anyone's kind of struggling, then I would absolutely say kind of just think about the future and how everyone will drop out, because the majority of your friends you went to drama school with probably aren't doing it anymore. And I know that that's true for most of my year when I was studying.
And it's I did a panel at my old drama school a few months back, and we were talking about how it's such a cliche for professional actors to come into a drama school, or agents to come into a drama school, or whoever, someone in the industry to come into a drama school and sit in front of the students and say to them, only 2% of you will be working in 10 years time. And everyone is sat there going, yeah, but I'll be part of that 2%. But equally, it's, as you say, it's not a failure to turn around and say, well, actually, this isn't what I want anymore. I know so many people who I never thought would retire, in inverted commas, from acting. Never thought it would happen. And in the end, kind of life kind of caught up and said, well, actually, do you want to be a responsible adult? Or do you want to, carry on in this game? And that's not to say that you can't do both. I had quite a few people when my daughter was born say, well, are you giving up acting now? And it's like, well, I could. It would make things easier in many respects, but I love it too much.
Yeah.
And I don't. Absolutely, it would be a compromise for me to give up my acting career because I now have a child. It makes things a lot more difficult. I mean, thankfully, with the present kind of situation, I don't feel quite so much pressure from the industry, given that the whole industry is shut down pretty much. I don't feel so much pressure from the industry at the minute that I'm kind of missing out on anything. But I think if that wasn't going on, I'd definitely feel the pressure, and I have done for the last 12 months. What is it?
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think
on.
in terms of you being a parent, I think it's really important to show your children that you have passion for something and that you're going for it. That's a really important lesson. And I think that if you were to give up something that you really love, to be a parent, and then, well, I think that you're compromising yourself a little bit, and maybe in some way you're compromising yourself as a parent too, because you're not teaching them that they can go after something and get it.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that was my outset, and kind of been my response to most people when they've asked. So how long was it? Because you kind of talked about kind of feeling part of a community and things. How long would you say it was after you graduated that the reality set in, that it's less about talent and more about network? And do you think that's true? That's not to say that talent doesn't matter, because obviously talent does matter. But in terms of moving from each rung on the ladder, shall we say, do you think it's true that network is just as or more important than talent? And if so, when did that set in?
I think it was kind of always there, because I feel like when I was looking at the kind of theatre community, I did feel it was a bit cliquey, so, and I could see that the same people were working with the same people, and for the life of me I felt like I couldn't quite get in there. I was in there to a certain extent, but never to the point where I was kind of like fully getting those exciting jobs.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I think that's down to a lot of things. You know, at the time I was very green, and I think it's, you know, partly down to experience and stuff. So you could be the most talented person, but you know, maybe you're not quite right for this thing or whatever. So I think I didn't quite fully get that until maybe looking back.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't kind of, I think at the time I took certain things personally. And yeah, now I look back on it, I'm kind of like, okay, well, that's fine. You know, it wasn't the right time and it wasn't the right job. So it doesn't, you know, it's cool. But I think it's kind of about both. I think that you should always be working on your craft and developing your talent. But I think as well, you know, just when you're on jobs, just make sure you're nice.
Yeah, don't be a dick, right?
Yeah, don't be a dick. But I don't like people who kind of network and you can see they're networking, you know, like they're just trying to impress people, and they're not being authentic. And I think that really I'm not really someone who loves going out to network. I'm a bit of a hermit, and
same.
And I'm quite shy as a person, and I kind of just, in a social situation, I kind of just, I'll gravitate to people that I feel are authentic, and if I can have a chat with them, then that's great. But I won't go out of my way to kind of be too in there, because I don't like it. It doesn't make me feel very comfortable. So in order to answer your question, in a very roundabout way, I think it's a hard one. I think it is a mix of the two things. I think there are obviously, and we've seen time and time again, and especially when it comes to, you know, film and TV, screen work, there is a lot of nepotism and whatnot. Sadly, I will never benefit from that because I don't know it. I don't have family in the industry, so me.
Well, it's funny because I was having a conversation, because I think it's difficult because you don't like. I think as an actor, you don't want to talk about nepotism too much because if you're not a beneficiary of nepotism, you sound like you're a bitter actor, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't really want to go down that road.
Yeah, absolutely, and I don't either because, you know, but equally, I think it is a part of our industry, and study after study after study seems to come to the same conclusion. And I was actually sat talking with my girlfriend the other day, and because nepotism came up, I think there was something on the news or something. I can't remember how it came up, but anyway, and we were having a chat, and I was saying, you know, there are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of actors working their butts off to get on camera once, and yet think about how many families, like dynasties in the industry, that you can name. Like how many families have got multiple members of the same family, all who are not just on getting TV credits, but they are big name stars. That to me, I think, is all the evidence that you need to kind of suggest that actually there's something going on in terms of nepotism. Because otherwise,
but having said that, I don't think that it's an impossible feat.
No, it's not an impossible feat. No, not at all. No, I don't think it is an impossible feat either. I just think if you look at the numbers, I think statistically, the amounts of families where multiple people are big name stars, you suddenly go, is that nepotism or is that coincidence? I don't know the answer, but I think
it's a bit of both, isn't it? I mean, especially if they're a talented family and they all happen to, you know, they've all got the thing.
Absolutely.
It's kind of, they probably would have made it individually, but having that family member has helped drastically.
For sure, yeah. Anyway,
but I don't think that should deter people from being in the industry if they want to. And I definitely think that as you kind of progress and kind of go up the ladder in the industry, and you know, you're kind of going from you know, like maybe you go from you start at the bottom and you go from a, you know, a kind of bottom level agency, and then you kind of move up to the next one, and you go up and you go up and you go up.
It'll only get you so far if it's not backed up. I suppose by so sorry, my brain went in another direction then as you were mid-flow. Sorry. So I actually did another interview, which I think is probably the episode that's going to come out before this one, with a friend of mine who had a very famous mum. And it got him through certain doors, but I actually asked him, you know, did you benefit from you know, your mum being already well established? And he said that to a degree, yes, it did, but after a certain point, it started to work against him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I won't go into too much of it because obviously there's another episode to listen to. But I suppose that is my counter argument to what I've just said about the nepotism, is that, you know, having the connections will only get you so far if you don't have the talent to back it up. And that's not to say that my friend didn't. He's very talented, but equally, that the dynasties, as I called them, are not going to get where they are if they're not talented. So I suppose it's just a roundabout way of me saying, you know, no disrespect to anybody that is in a family where there's loads of already well-established people. So you mentioned about dealing with kind of developing a hard skin. Let's say.
I'm not sure I'm totally there yet.
Right. Well, let's talk about it, because it's one of those things that is talked about so much, and about one of the hard parts of being an actor, and you know, dealing with the rejection constantly, and all of that sort of stuff. So when let's talk about, you have done an audition. How do you kind of deal with the post-audition saga? Whether that be you've come out of it and thought, yes, I smashed it, or whether you come out of it and think, oh, Jesus, that was awful. What is the kind of process, whether that be over the next 24 hours, the next week, the next 2 weeks sometimes? How do you handle all of that?
I think it very much depends on how I feel I've done. And that is the preface for this. If I feel I have done well, then ironically, I think about it less. If I feel I have done badly, the paranoia sets in, and, you know, oh, maybe I did this wrong, and, you know, and I scrutinize and go over it, and I'll have a terrible night's sleep. and I just try and do anything I can to distract me. And it's really one of those things where there's no hard and fast rules. Right. Because I think that you can say to your blue in the face, forget about it. But, you know, sometimes you can't. No. And it's just one of those things you have to just deal with it. You have to know that it's part of the process. You know, oh, I feel like I've done a bad audition. I'm just going to, you know, acknowledge it. And maybe when you acknowledge it in yourself, then you can move on, and you can be like, it's okay. It was, you know, it felt like it didn't feel great, but I'm going to stop it now, because it's only negative energy that you're putting into yourself. And there really is there's no time for that. I think that the best way to deal with it in a sense is kind of, just acknowledging it, and then just time. Go and do something fun. Go and watch a film and try not to think about it. And if you need to have a rant about it, go and have your rant, but move on.
Yeah. And how long when, let's say, if you ever get the and it is a big if, although getting better these days, if you ever get the call to say, nah, it's not your turn this time, How long do you give yourself to wallow in self-pity?
Do you know what I like to know? I like to know because I think
do.
there have been times where I've been kind of down to the last two of something. And just knowing that it wasn't me I'm able to go, oh, okay, then fine.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's been the easiest thing. The easiest thing for me is knowing it's not easy when you don't hear anything. Because then you think, well, how long am I supposed to think about this for?
Yeah, right.
And I think that, yeah, it depends what the job is. I mean, obviously, we know that if it's a commercial, it will probably be cast in the next few days. If you don't hear after a few days, it's gone out the window. TV, probably like a week, maybe 2 weeks in this time. Don't know. And films, it could be a month. But I've not done a lot of films, so for me, the turnaround for films has been quite quick, because they were casting fast, and so that's fine. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, people have said they've gone for months. I think it was Benedict Cumberbatch who said that when he auditioned for Smaug, I think he did it, and it was like 6 months later or something.
Yeah.
That they called him. So, he probably thought, oh, well, never mind, and then he's moved on with his life, and 6 months down the line, they've given him a call and told him to come in.
But isn't that a much better way?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it a much better way to, I mean, again, it's that cliche, just leave the room and forget about it. But I actually, because I'm almost the opposite to you, I actually think about an audition far more when I think I've smashed it. And if I think I really did a bad job, that is the point I go, well, I haven't got that one, forget about it. So I do the opposite. But I find I am so much happier when I know I ballsed it up, and I get no anxiety about it whatsoever. So sorry if my agent's listening.
No.
But no, I don't. And I kind of come away from it and I think, yeah, I haven't got that one. I absolutely messed that up. What can I do to not allow that to happen next time? And then I move on. And it's the ones where I think I've smashed it where I'll be like, I can't wait to do this job that I haven't got yet.
Don't get me wrong, I've done that too. I've thought I've absolutely smashed it, and maybe in a sense I have, but then I've not got it. But having said that, not getting the job, as I'm sure you must have heard before, and many people have said, if you don't get the job, it doesn't mean that you've done a bad job.
Yeah.
It's just who they've picked. Yeah, I wish I was more like that. I'm working on it. I'm trying to forget about the bad auditions, but I think it's just because I get that thing of, when you feel like you've embarrassed yourself.
Yeah.
The thing that kind of keeps you awake at night or whatever, and that's what I do. It's a form of self-torture, and I'm not proud of it, but it's just there.
I think we all do it in our own ways, though, don't we? Do you know what my form of self-torture is? I have this thing, and I've talked about it on publicly before, that I do this, and it's really embarrassing that I do it, but I can't help myself. I've been doing it for years. I know it's a really bad thing to do. Talking about kind of going back to put in arbitrary time limits on your career. If I see, it's so bad that I do this. So if I see an actor who's been really successful, I will go back through, I'll go onto their IMDb, and I'll go back and I will look at how old they were when that happened, when the success started to come in. And I'll go, okay, right. I'll either feel great because I've got I've got another 10 years, it's fine, don't panic. Or I'll absolutely go into meltdown because I'll be like, oh, they were 24 years old and it all came through. Or even so, like, the thing that's happening now, as I say, I'm coming up to 10 years in the industry and I haven't had my first TV credit yet. And now I'm having this thing where I'm going, okay, yeah, their success didn't come till they were like 45, but look at all of these tiny roles they built up to get to where they are, and that kind of comparison trap that I kind of get myself into. That's my form of self-torture.
I think a lot of people do that. I think that's very common. And it is that thing, isn't it, where it's like you can't compare your career to someone else's because you're not the same and you don't have the same skill sets and things to offer a role. So it's ridiculous to compare yourself. But I think that humans kind of can't compare. They can't help it. It's like it's sort of within their nature a little bit. And I guess it's part of the element of competition as well.
Sure.
Of that thing of like, okay, we're in the same industry, they've got this, I haven't yet, but it's all negative energy, isn't it? It's just weighing yourself down with
and it's so difficult not to get wrapped up in that stuff. It really is really hard.
It's the challenge. I think it's a big part of why people leave. It's because they can't get over the idea of just that's it. That's what you have to do. You've got to put your time in, and while you're doing that, make sure you're getting better. Make sure that you're making yourself completely marketable. Find what it is that you want to do, and work towards it. I've decided quite recently. I sort of started doing this a couple of years ago, where I started doing kickboxing, and I've recently kind of gone, I actually really want to get into kind of fantasy and action, and you can't do that without having some sort of martial arts training. And so I've started doing that, and that may or may not come off. I hope it does, but I'm training, I'm putting myself forward for that, and it's gonna take a long time because it's a skill that's really hard to master. But I'm setting my path down that road. And that can only open doors.
I think there's a lot to be said about kind of reverse engineering what it is that you want. Because I think naively, and I think this is partly because of the way drama schools train, I think a lot of actors, myself included, I still battle with this now. A lot of actors come out of drama school and then agents start sending an email going, have you had any experience doing X? Have you had any experience doing Y? And you suddenly go, well, hang on a second. I've spent 3 years of my life professionally training to be an actor. Like that's my skill. That's the thing. Like, what's all this other stuff I'm supposed to now be doing? Like stage combat and like motion capture and all that other stuff. You suddenly go, hang on a second. What was that 3 years for? But I think that's because the industry now, the competition is so fierce that people with those additional skills are now more sought after because
it sets you apart.
Absolutely. Would you rather hire an actor, let's say it's for a fantasy thing, and there's loads of sword play and whatnot. Would you rather hire an actor who is a bloody brilliant actor, but you're also going to have to spend a fortune on training them in stage combat for a month? Or would you rather have an actor who's pretty damn good, not as good as the other guy, but pretty damn good, and also an expert in stage combat?
I think it depends how big the role is. I think that if they're going for a main role, then they're going to pick the better actor and they'll teach you up. Because this is the thing, right? When it comes to fantasy stuff, when it comes to stunts and things like that, you can actually, as long as you are proficient enough to look good on camera doing it, right? They're still going to put in a stunt double with you. I know someone who's only been doing it for a few years. She's just had a role on Witcher. She had a stunt double, but she still did.
I was just about to say, I think a lot of it depends on what sort of budget film you're looking at, though, because if you are looking at a big budget production like Witcher, or you look at, you know, something like Lord of the Rings or whatever, then they
Mm-hmm.
actually have the budget and they are going to train you through that stuff anyway,
Mm-hmm.
because that is factored into their budget.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to make sure that it's brilliant. But if you're looking at kind of more independent stuff,
Mm-hmm.
where actually money is tight, that's where
Oh,
it becomes more crucial to have
absolutely.
those skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is ironic, really.
Oh,
You'd
yeah.
think it
Yeah.
should be the other way around, because actually, you know, the higher up you are, presumably you've already gathered a lot of those skills. But
Mm-hmm.
obviously, you know, the higher the budget, the more perfect the end product needs to be, and the more influence that a studio is going to have in how perfect that outcome has to be.
Yeah.
So it's a catch-22 all the time, because and I think that's ultimately the crux of why this industry is so challenging, because it
Mm-hmm.
is full of catch-22s. Everywhere you turn, it's a catch-22. People say, make your own work, and you go, yeah, great, and then you start making your own work, and then you realize how much time and energy you're having to put into creating your own work, and then
Mm-hmm.
suddenly you go, well, hang on, what if I put all this time and energy into just being an actor? Maybe I'd get more
Mm-hmm.
work and wouldn't need to create my own work. I've been in that position.
Mm-hmm.
Equally, the skills thing, you kind of go, well, hang on, I'm a bloody brilliant actor because I've trained my ass off to be a bloody brilliant actor, and now you're telling me I need all these other skills. So I need to do all those other skills, but then equally,
Yeah.
all that time and effort I put into building those other skills, I could put into becoming an even better actor. And likewise with experience and you know, getting a good agent. Well, in order to get a really good agent, you need to have a great CV, but in order to have a really great CV, you need to have a really good agent to get you through the door. Otherwise, you're not going to get taken seriously and you're not going to get through the door. It's where do you start?
Yeah.
And it's and I think that's the big puzzle box that everybody's trying to suss out, and nobody's really ever cracked it.
No, but I think that's because so many people enter through different means. You know, it can be completely different for absolutely everyone. Someone got in because they made their own work. Look at Phoebe Waller-Bridge, you know,
Yeah, great.
she blew up overnight. Well, not overnight. I mean, years of hard work and, you know, her putting it into her show, and that blew up, you know, and put her on the map. And so
Yeah,
that's an example of an actor creating their own work. But then, you know, equally someone got in through nepotism, or someone got in through just sheer hard work and hanging in there. You know,
yeah,
there's no hard and fast rules. And I think it's just, you have to put energy into who you want to be.
yeah,
Do you want to
absolutely.
create something? Do you have the passion to create something? Because if you do, then that will be the thing that helps you, because you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy the process of doing it, and that will kind of,
Yeah, and I
you know,
think
bounce off.
that's the difference between the actors that stick at it and the actors that don't. Is
Hmm.
that it's actually the falling in love with the um it's falling in love with the creative process behind being an actor,
Hmm.
as much as it is falling in love with actually the creative process of acting, which are two very different things.
Hmm.
um Being a professional actor should be a creative process in of itself that you should find fulfillment from.
Hmm.
And falling in love with auditioning, and falling in love with networking and building relationships and things, and falling in love with the business,
Hmm.
as challenging as it can be, and as um much as it can really kind of break down your morale. It's kind of falling in love with all the aspects. One of the things I love most about the industry is the speed at which you can make some really strong friendships
Hmm.
with people. The speed at which everyone, particularly in theatre, it's one of the main reasons I love theatre, is how quickly a whole team can come together and feel so connected. And it's those things that I think are the things that keep you sticking around,
Hmm.
rather than the, you know, when will my first TV credit come? When will, you know, I'll get a lead role in a feature film? That sort of stuff. The longer I am in this game, the less
Hmm.
important that stuff becomes to me.
Hmm.
Um, I fell in love with acting for the craft. Anyway, it was my safe haven, shall we say,
Mm-hmm.
when I was younger, and that's what I fell in love with. And sure, there's an element of ambition, and I think we talked about this last time we recorded. You know, we have very similar tastes in the sorts of roles we'd like to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we talked about how there's, whilst we have a desire for those sorts of roles, there's no desire necessarily, and forgive me if I'm mixing you up with someone else, but there's no desire necessarily for any fame that comes with those roles.
Mm-hmm.
But actually the
Yeah.
fame would be a byproduct of being able to play in that world.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
And the love is about wanting to play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, don't worry, that was me.
No, it was you. Good, thank God
Yeah,
for
it
that.
was me. This wasn't me. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
No, absolutely. I think that if you're chasing fame, you're in the wrong job. You're doing it for the wrong
Mm-hmm.
reasons, because it's so hard to have the kind of mindset to keep at it.
Yeah.
That I think if you're not in it for the right reasons, then you're just kind of, I don't know, you're just kind of wasting space a little bit. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do know people that they're just kind of, they just want to be famous, and they don't really care how they do it,
Yeah.
they just want to be in the public eye, and I think that that's really toxic, and I don't like to have that
Yeah.
energy around me. I've talked a lot about energy. I'm sorry, I probably sound like a massive hippie.
No, it's fine.
But it's one of the things that I think is really crucial to how you are as a person, and how you develop, and what you attract. And no, I think fame is a really toxic thing. I think that if you want to be an actor, you have to love it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You've got to love building a character and portraying that to the audience, making a connection with the audience. I think is really vital for me. Is like, it's the reason I want to do this. I want people to feel something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it, and if I've done my job well and they felt something, then great, that's it, job done, I can go home happy. Fame is a hilarious kind of weird phenomenon, that kind of aspects of my life I've been close to it, not in the sense that like I would ever call myself famous. I'm definitely not. I don't even know why I have to establish that. No one knows who I am. But just in the sense that I've seen it to happen to other people, and I've witnessed certain aspects of it, and it's not something that I enjoy. I think it can be nice and it can be flattering, but ultimately you need to be a really strong person, and you need to know exactly who you are, because if you enter that world not knowing, then that's when the trouble happens, and you kind of get taken down the wrong path by, I don't know, certain people, and it's not good. But there have been kind of aspects of life that I've seen, and to a certain extent I've slightly witnessed in the last few months, I guess. Well, since the beginning of this year, actually. I've had like a few, because of the TV stuff that I've done. I've had a couple of fan letters, hilariously, which are really lovely. And of course, the kind of thing that makes you go, it makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside. And but that's not why I'm doing it, And if I never got those letters, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter at all, because it's not about that. It's just about being able to do it, and I'm thankful that I'm able to do it. If anything, those letters just mean that I get to do the job I love.
Yeah.
So I think fame's horrible. I don't like it, but but I do think it's a byproduct of where you want to be, and it's like what you were saying. I think we want to reach a level in the industry where we may have to contend with that. And that's fine. I just think that you have to be really comfortable and settled in who you are.
Yeah.
Because
because I think the challenges come talking as somebody who's not experienced any fame whatsoever, but from from the outside looking in, I think the challenges come from people who aren't ready for it.
Absolutely.
And I think equally, I think the level of dissatisfaction in one's career also comes from someone who's not ready for it. It's dissatisfaction, sorry, let me rephrase that. Dissatisfaction of having actually achieved a fair amount and not enjoying it. I've heard so many stories of not famous actors, but actors that have got series regular roles and things, sitting and having conversations with people and saying, oh, I've not really done anything with my career. And for me, that's just a red flag of lack of enjoyment.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite times in this industry have been when I've gone from Monday to Friday, and the primary focus of my time has been acting, which, as a professional, is so strange that is such a rare thing, where from Monday to Friday, that is my main focus.
Yeah. Because usually it's like an hour or, a day
right.
or something. But yeah, to have a kind of solid week where you're like, I'm an actor this week. It's great.
Yeah. And how you go, finally I feel validated, until next week when it all dries up again.
Yeah, exactly. I had a week because I don't know if we're mentioning on the podcast we're in lockdown. In case you didn't know. But I had a very acting week towards we were a few weeks in. And I had an acting week where I got to do a Zoom read of a pilot, which was nice. And I had to prepare an audition for a couple of American agents, which is cool, which happens on We Audition. So if you're not checking them out, you should. This isn't sponsored, by the way. Thought I'd say that. But yeah, it's one of those things that I think has come up as a real kind of acting resource at this time, which is really beneficial. And so if you want to go and check out what they do, then definitely do that. But yeah, and I was just doing lots of little things like that, and I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. I sort of knew that the rest of lockdown wasn't really going to feel like that, and so I was like, I was just embracing it at the time, and it was really, really nice, really lovely to kind of just feel like an actor. And I even tweeted about it. I was like, I feel like an actor this week. It's great.
It is the best feeling.
Go to my
head. But it's true, and it's and how rare those feelings are when you're at this level of our careers,
right?
Where you're not getting calls left, right, and center, and scripts being sent to you just on the off chance that you might fancy doing it, which even at the top echelons, that's still rare to that degree. But I think, again, going back to the naivety of coming out of drama school, I think the expectation is almost that you get there quite quickly, that you have those actor weeks very quickly. I know that's certainly an expectation that I had, was that I'd be able to have a week where I'm like, right, I'm an actor this week, and how rare those opportunities are.
But then when you have them, they feel amazing, and that's why you do it.
Absolutely. It is the biggest drug, I think, this career, and I think it's why people stick at it so long. The highs are so high, and the lows equally balance out, and they can be really low, but the highs are just amazing, and you are desperate to get back to them. Like, post-show blues is a real thing.
Definitely.
Like, it's said flippantly, but it is a real thing. I still get post-show blues about shows I did 5 years ago, because I just think it was such a good experience.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best roles I've ever played, I think, was while I was studying. We did a play called Love and Money, and I played this character called Val, who was just very, very quick and very kind of, she was on the surface a very bitchy character, but underneath it, she had been very hurt by the person that she was talking to, and that really fueled everything, and it was just amazing. And every so often I think about that role and I'm like, oh man, I'd love to do that again. That was so good.
Yeah, but I have the same. One of my favorites was when I trained as well. Just and they stick with you for a long time.
Yeah.
Some of those roles, they really do.
Mm.
So this next question is one that I like to ask pretty much everyone, because I don't
Mm-hmm.
think it's talked about enough. And actually, given the lockdown situation, it's very apropos at the moment. So I have a thing where I think that actually one of the things that isn't talked about too much in this industry, and I think it's partly because people are a little bit embarrassed, is actually how actors are productive with their time. And let's say, for example, that you did have, hypothetically, although actually happening at the moment, let's say you did have a clear week. You don't have an acting job per se, but you have a week where you can focus on being an actor as opposed to necessarily acting. How would you spend a day? What do you do to keep yourself productive, keep yourself working, moving forward, whatever?
Do you mean in lockdown or out
So
of lockdown?
it's apropos now because of lockdown, but this is a
Right.
question I would have asked you anyway. So lockdown aside, but it's probably now a case where actually you can answer this very honestly, because actually you've been experiencing it for the last couple of months.
I think the funny thing about lockdown is that I've actually, because I have the time now, I can do anything I want. And that is a gift, really. So I mean, I mentioned about martial arts, and I'm doing that every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. So I'll do that from 3 till 4. I work with my trainer over Zoom, and so that's, in a way, that's me working towards my acting, because it's me developing a skill for acting. But other things that I do are, well, I mentioned we audition. I might join in on a chat going on there, whether or not it's on Instagram or whether or not it's their actual their meetings and stuff, which, by the way, I haven't been able to get into yet. except for the
you and
American
thousands
management.
of others.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's but it's good to try, I think. But I think it's good to not put pressure on doing that. And this is, I think, the key thing is to do what you feel. Don't feel like, oh, I must be doing something, and if I'm not, then I'm not an actor today. That's ridiculous. But one thing that I have started doing more is listening to acting podcasts. I've been listening to one on I've forgotten what it's called. It's Castbox is an app, and then I just type in acting, and there's an acting podcast by an actor called Lee Foster.
Right.
Forrester. I'm just going to try and get it up because I can't quite remember what it's called, which is really bad. I know I should have written this down, because I thought about talking about this. This is me not prepping. I'm just waiting for it to load. Oh, there's an error. Yeah, I can't get it. It doesn't matter. I've been listening to acting podcasts, and I'll go out for a run or a walk or whatever, and I'll listen to it for about an hour. And it's just really nice to hear from people in the industry. This guy is not a famous actor, but he's doing well. And it's interesting to hear his thoughts on the industry. He brings people on to talk about their experiences, whether or not they're casting directors or fellow actors. There's an acting book he talks about with the author, who is not only an acting coach but also an actor himself, and a successful one at that. And I like to do that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff makes me feel like I'm being proactive and I'm learning, you know. But if you don't like doing that, then fine. But I would kind of question why you wouldn't like doing that a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, because if you don't like learning about acting, then what's the point? But I think that, yeah, it's definitely something that I will take, I think, into my post-lockdown life. I will listen to more podcasts by industry people. So I've discovered that more. What else have I done? I bought a tripod the other day to help with my self-tape auditions, and I've been practicing monologues and things like that. So if I feel like I've got nothing to do that day, or I've looked at a monologue that I really like, then I'll practice it, and maybe I'll put it on camera. And I won't necessarily put that out to anywhere. It's just for me to know that I'm doing something. And I'll ask maybe a select few people to have a look at it. But that's another thing which I think is an important thing to do, because it keeps you focused on something, and it keeps your brain ticking over in that kind of, in that way of building a character, and just being able to do that is a nice thing to do, you know. It's that, I feel like an actor today type feeling, which is lovely. So yeah, I've done lots of bits and bobs, really, and I think that the time at the moment has allowed us to network more on social media, which is something that I do neglect, I think, because I'm so busy. When life is normal, I'm so busy trying to earn money and living my life in that sense, that I do neglect that kind of stuff. And so I've been able to pick that up from time to time. It's not a constant thing, because I think that would drive me mad. But it's something that is there, and things like Showreel Share Day have really helped in that kind of sense. I know that when I put on my showreel, it was watched by a couple of casting directors who liked my reel, which was nice.
Great.
So that's great. You know, little things like that. I mean, I guess the occasional email to a casting director or something in this time. But again, I think the key thing for everyone really is to not put pressure on yourself to do these things. If you want to do them, then do them.
Yeah,
but,
I've done almost the opposite. I've been a lot quieter on social. I'm just starting to kind of, what week are we in now? Week 6 of lockdown.
I don't even know.
I don't know anymore. I'm just starting to kind of get more productive. But I've taken this opportunity, which is not like me at all, but I've actually taken the opportunity to kind of go, do you know what? I'm out for a bit. I'm out. I have an opportunity now to spend a lot of time with my family without the pressure of having a career to pursue at the moment. I'm going to take that opportunity just to not have that pressure on myself. You know, and just kind of go, you know, I've got exactly the same career opportunities at the moment as Benedict Cumberbatch. I'm good. Like, he's got as many career prospects as I do right now. So I'm just going to take my foot off the gas just for a few weeks and just enjoy not having any pressure on myself at all, which has been quite liberating, actually. I've started to get itchy feet now, and you know, as I say, we're probably about 6, maybe even 7, 8 weeks in now, and so I'm kind of starting to step back up again. I've had my little holiday, as it were.
It's sort of like being a kid, isn't it? You know, when you were little and the summer holidays felt like ages. This is that.
yeah
time.
Right. And but, God knows how long it's going to be going on for as well.
Hey, as long as the weather's nice, I'm good.
Yeah, you wait until it's cold, crisp November morning.
Last week was horrible.
Oh, it was miserable. Anyway,
yeah, it was horrendous.
So we've actually been going for nearly an hour already. So I'm going to start wrapping up, but I just kind of want to ask you 2 or 3 kind of quick fires, shall we say?
Oh no, scary.
They're quite basic ones, but
all right.
I think they're good ones to talk about. I've got 4.
Oh, you've gone all robot-y.
Oh no, it's just come up with my connection's unstable. It's fine. Can you hear me okay? Am I back to normal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So yeah, I've got about 4. Let's go with 4 questions. So number 1, what is it that you love most about being an actor?
Performing. That's it.
Great.
Acting, getting to act.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. That's fine. What is it that you dislike most about being an actor?
Probably pressure.
Yeah. In what sense?
In the sense of, yeah, I guess it's external stuff, isn't it? Is that a kind of outside pressure to succeed? But it's just one of those things that you just kind of have to deal with, isn't
it? Yeah, part
I
of
don't
the
know.
course.
I think that sometimes I guess what I'm really working on is my own insecurities, and when I've been on jobs, this is why I say, being in this industry is really hard. It's really great, but it's also really hard in the sense that if you are not comfortable in yourself,
yeah,
it can really bite you on the bum. And I have been really kind of working on my own insecurities and making sure that my foundations are solid. Because I know that when I've been on jobs, that kind of imposter syndrome thing kicks in, and I kind of sit there and go, oh well, I'm not good enough to be here, and they're gonna find out,
yeah.
It's that whole kind of thing, and that's my own insecurity. No one else thinks that, and it's really kind of, that's what I dislike, but that comes from me in a big way. So as long as I work on that, then I can start removing that from my life. Yeah, that I don't like
that. And at what point would you consider that your career has been a success?
I feel like it already has. Not in a kind of like massive way, but just in the sense that I feel really comfortable with where I am, and I know where I'm going. And it's going back to that whole kind of fame thing. Like I don't care that no one knows who I am at all. I just think it's really fun, and I just want to carry on doing it. And so for me, I've already won in a certain way, because I've already done things that I wanted to do. I want to do more now, so it's fuel for the fire to kind of to keep going. But yeah, I consider every aspect of what I've done to be a goal and to be a success, because I have come from absolutely nothing. I don't have family and friends in the industry. Like, I have friends now, but as in, like, no one kind of gave me this golden key and went, here you go, child, go off into the acting world and be a success. No one did that for me. Everything has come from my own back. And that's not to say that along the way there have not been people who have helped me to a certain extent, but it all comes from you. And I think that everything in this industry comes from how much you're willing to put in. And I think that you need to kind of you gotta really want it. And I've always said my entire life, I've been the kind of kid who's gone, I'm an actor. Because that's deep down, that's the core of me, that's who I am, and it's where I find the most joy. And it's been in every single aspect of my life. That's what makes me an actor, and a performer. So yeah, I think everything has been awesome, and I can't wait for more of it.
So my last question to you then, you've got yourself a little time machine. Okay, you can go back and you can visit younger Rachel, pre-drama school Rachel, or even drama school Rachel. I'll let you choose. What would you say to her?
chill out. I'd say chill out. Have fun with it, and it's not the kind of be all and end all. I think when I was by the way, I didn't go to a drama school in the sense that people think. I went to a uni, and I did drama and theatre arts at St Mary's University. So it's considered a drama course. It got me onto Spotlight, but but it's not in the sense, it's not kind of it. I didn't go to RADA, I didn't go to Central or anything like that. So I think that at the time I put a lot of pressure on myself to do well, which especially in my final year, I really was. I wanted to get a first, because I felt like if I got a first, that would set me apart from everyone else. Because I didn't go to drama school, but hey, I got a first, and that was my mindset. And every single piece of work I did, whether or not it was written or practical, I was like, how do I get a first? And you just don't need that, No. It's really funny how kind of unnecessary that is. You get a degree, It doesn't really matter where you came in the rank of it all. And I think that if I'd have maybe taken that pressure off myself, then maybe it would have been a bit better. But having said that, I do think that having that kind of tenacity to get something taught me a lot about myself, and it taught me a lot about not letting go. I was kind of like a dog with a bone. I was like, no, this is what I'm gunning for. And to a certain extent I achieved that. However, it was slightly impossible because my second year grades ended up pulling me down a little bit. So I got a first for every single piece of work I did in third year, but I didn't get a first overall because my grades from the previous year. But right. I was away filming stuff, so and
so you won.
Well, yeah, in a sense, yeah. I think I won in the sense that I achieved what I wanted to for that year, but I didn't realize early enough that no matter what I did, it kind of didn't matter. But at the same time, I think it taught me a lot about tenacity and the fact that, especially because I was the kind of kid where at school I wasn't hugely academic, so I kind of needed to prove to myself that I could be, and in the right field, talking about things that I love, I was, and I was able to achieve that for myself. So so that was great. But I think there is a lot of pressure, because I think that when you're living through stuff like that, when you're studying, you think it's the entire world. So I think looking back on it, I'd be a bit like, chill out, Rachel.
Chill out. Honestly, Rachel, I said this to you last time we recorded, but I'm going to say it again because the last recording died. I see a lot of myself in you, and I that's come up in this conversation and in the last conversation. Full disclosure to everyone, we hadn't actually met until we recorded last time. Obviously we'd been in communication over social media and things, but there are certainly a lot of similarities both in your ambition and, well, in fact mainly in your ambition. I think we share many similarities both in terms of how we approach drama school and how we approach things in the past, and how we're looking to approach things in the future, and the kind of taste of things that we have. So I would be shocked, I think, if we didn't end up working together at some point, by kind of pure coincidence, just because I feel the kindred spirits to some degree. I honestly do. This has been great. I don't know if...
Thank you very much.
I might have to get you back on for the next season, whenever that might be.
Oh yeah, go for it. I'd love to.
But this is now the second recording we've done, so why not make it 3? Just before we sign off,
Mm-hmm.
if people want to find you, how can they find you?
I am at Rachel Lin Actor on Twitter, Instagram. I do have a Facebook page, which, funnily enough, I neglect for large periods of time until I go, oh, maybe I should post this.
Till Facebook starts going, nope, they haven't heard from you for a while.
Oh, it does that a lot. It's like, oh, they haven't. But Facebook's nudging me, after a few days, and I'm like,
I know.
I don't have anything new. Leave me alone.
Thanks so much, Rachel. Honestly, this has been great.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been
no
awesome.
worries. My pleasure. So that's it for this episode. A great interview. Thank you again, Rachel, for coming on. Yeah, it's a joy as ever. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Rachel has actually contacted me to let me know that she's changed her social media handles. So her social media handles are now at @IAM_Rachel Lin. So I just wanted to throw that housekeeping note in there for anybody that did want to follow her on social medias. That is it for this episode. Next episode, we're going to be interviewing Shani Tabaco Brown. I hope I pronounced that correct. I'm so sorry, Shani, if I didn't. But it's a great interview. Shani has been producing her own work, her own films and things, but she is also an actress as well. So she has an interesting perspective on the other side of the camera, which I think is quite invaluable for actors starting out in the industry, or even ones that are more seasoned but have never experienced things on that side of the camera, or a side of a production, because it does teach you a lot. So that's the next episode. That will be in 2 weeks' time. Really looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. So that's it. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks.